Welcome to Now You're Playing With Podcast, episode 14. A little housekeeping before we start. Tat and I have been super busy at work. He's in IT. I work elections in a swing state. So, yeah, I haven't really had a whole lot of time. Election day I worked 20 hours, and then we had a deadline post-election day with provisional ballots. I worked 21 hours, and that's 70 to 80-hour work weeks. On average, I had a 91-hour work week at the max. So we're just finally starting to slow down. We're not even finished with our post-election work. But the podcast is still here. We had an opportunity to talk to C. Trent Rosecrans. He is a baseball blogger for CBSSports.com. He used to be a beat writer for the Cincinnati Post. He also worked in radio. He also started up his own website in between jobs called CNatty.com. He was kind of one of the forerunners of crowdsourcing. He got a bunch of people to sponsor his trip to spring training, and he was successful. And this was before Kickstarter and everything. So I always admired him being somebody who was my age and getting along in a business that's mostly old people. And one of the things I want to do with this podcast is kind of talk to people that have made it and can work on their own. And even though he's employed by a major television network, he still worked on the other side of things, and he sees things from our level, me being a mid-30s Gen X kid. So it's mostly baseball talk. We talk some other subjects too. There is some video games in it, but it's a pretty good conversation, and he's an awesome guy to hang out with us for a while, and hope you guys like it. We're here with Mr. Trent Rosecrans. He's the former beat writer for the Cincinnati Post for the Reds, and now he works for CBSSports.com as a baseball blogger. And I know this isn't particularly video game related, but I do like to have people on the show that I kind of relate to. And he's my age, and he's made it in life, so he's on. So
I've made it in life?
Well, yeah. You're
okay.
You're doing jobs that we only think old people typically do, you know?
I am old now. I really am.
We got to hear you talk on the radio to Marty Brennaman. That's pretty good.
It is. It's actually a lot of fun. Marty makes it easy. It's one of those things you don't realize how difficult it could be being interviewed. And the best ones make it seem real easy, and Marty's really the best.
What was that nickname he gave you?
The Consigliere.
Oh, yeah. They don't do the nicknames, do they?
I think they still got the bank president, but I don't know that Mark Sheldon has a nickname. I don't know. But yes, I was a consigliere. That's because Mark Lancaster was the godfather, and I followed Mark Lancaster.
That's right.
Yeah.
And actually, the godfather was, I think I technically kind of gave him that nickname, and Marty picked it up. Because there were, at the Cincinnati Post there near the end, there were three of us that went to school together. Myself, Mark Lancaster, and Josh Katzowitz. We all went to the University of Georgia. Actually, I guess technically Mark wasn't in school at the same time as Josh. Josh is a little bit younger. His freshman year was my senior year, and Mark had already graduated. But Mark and I were working at the Athens Banner Herald, the real newspaper in town. Well, relatively real. And we, so Mark was kind of the reason we got to Cincinnati. And on the 25th anniversary of our student paper's independence from the school, they did a special section, and they did a story on the three of us being all there together. And somehow I kind of told the story, and I said something about Mark being, or Lonnie Wheeler, the columnist at the time, called us the Bulldog Mafia, and I said Mark was kind of the godfather. So Marty saw that and started calling him the Godfather, and it went from there.
I'm lame. I haven't even seen the Godfather. Like, I don't even. Again, old people references.
Oh, we're gonna have to fix that one.
Yeah, I know.
You've never seen The Godfather?
I have. I've seen Goodfellas way too many times, but it's just never. Since it's 3 movies, it's just one of those things that requires
No,
a
it's
lot of
2
time.
movies.
Okay, you're right.
It's like how there was never a Rocky V.
Right. Or yeah. So they shot Jar Jar with a horse in the bed or something in the third.
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much. And,
Exactly.
there's only one major league.
Oh. Oh. Man. Caddyshack 2.
That didn't exist either.
No. We're not even giving Scott Bakula an assist for his efforts. Can't do it.
So you missed the newspaper business. Sally, you're Mr. Online blogger.
I really do. I mean, I love newspapers. I was a newspaper major in college, which I always say is kind of like majoring in dinosaur wrangling or buggy maintenance. I do miss newspapers, and I miss working for a daily newspaper, and especially the Post was a lot of fun. We had a great crew. One of the best parts was we didn't have a Sunday paper, so we always had the Post Saturday, as we called it.
Nice.
Which, if you're out on the road, you could just do whatever you wanted. You had a free day in Chicago or Pittsburgh or wherever you were. It was better if you were in Chicago. But yeah, so
What
it was.
what about St. Louis? What? No.
Oh, don't get me started on St. Louis.
Oh, please.
I just don't like the city. Although I will say, I was out there for the NLD or CS and had a better time this time. I did a run down by the Arch, and that was kind of a nice little run. They have a great hotel right there, and I found some decent barbecue places in St. Louis, and that'll go a long way.
From Kansas City, it's got to rub off. I mean, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not as good a barbecue town as Kansas City. I mean, let's not get crazy.
No.
But I found some really good barbecue in St. Louis. There's it's Pappy's Smokehouse, and then this other one I went to last time. I can't even remember the name of it, but I would go there again in a hurry. It was wonderful. And I was in Kansas City for the All-Star game, and it did. I think I had 7 barbecue meals in a row. It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
That's one reason to go out there. We have like one truck that's halfway decent in Columbus, so it's like
yeah. We have a good place in Cincinnati called Eli's. Eli's is legit barbecue. Other than that, there's no real legit barbecue in this town.
No, but good burgers. So we can
some good burgers. Yeah.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You had the burger blog, right?
Yeah. When I was at the radio business, which is just as messed up and just in a different way as the newspaper business. But yeah, Mo Egger, who does the show here in town and does his own blog, great guy. Mo and I did a burger blog, and we had a scoring system and everything, and we put a lot of thought into it, and it was good times. So there's some darn good burgers in this town.
I grew up
Terry's
in
Turf Club.
I grew up in Norwood, so I'm a Quatman guy.
I was at Quatman's. I went like a week or 2 ago. I was just feeling burger, and I was like, you know what? I want a Quatman burger.
You got to like the paper plate. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think Quatman's had our highest score.
Heck yeah.
It's a quality burger.
Good stuff.
And $6 for burger, fry, and a beer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, I never really went there growing up because it's kind of like a dirty. I mean, it's not dirty, but it's just it doesn't appeal to a kid in high school. It seems like a crowd going there, but now I love it. Whenever I go back, I have to go.
Actually, I think it finished number 2 because our last one was Herb and Thelma's, and Herb and Thelma's topped it by like a point. That's in Covington, and that's another very. It's not as fancy as Quatman's.
Whoa!
Oh yeah, it's a damn good burger.
Wow. See, I tend to like the ones that are cheaper anyway. The gourmet, fancy, Top Chef inspired, deluxe Wagyu, hamburger.
Wagyu, yeah.
Yes, it doesn't. Yeah, it's not right for me. I don't know.
See, I like that Gordo's, and this is, I'm sure, a really good at listening for your listeners. But Gordo's and Terry's Turf Club in Cincinnati for your more upscale burger.
Yes.
So I guess back to what do you do in the off season? I mean, I know you got to do meetings and stuff, but is it super busy or slow or what do you?
It's a little slower, but there's a lot going on. You know, there's always free agency movements. You know, I work with John Heyman, so there'll always be a couple emails from Heyman of stuff to work on, and Heyman's, you know, he knows before the players sometimes when they sign. I mean, the guy is wired. So yeah,
I saw like the review of the Major League, and they were comparing it to the A's last year. Like, who comes up with that stuff? Is that one of your?
Yeah, that is that was Matt's idea. You know, and we just kind of during the off season, you have to figure some stuff out because you don't want to go a day where you just have nothing going on. So we just kind of. You know, we think about some side projects and some side fun, and sometimes think about different ways, but still baseball related. That's not necessarily nuts and bolts contract because that stuff can get old. Yeah. And so, you know, we try to do a little bit of different stuff. And Dane Perry, who works on the site with me as well, lives in a different world, and it's wonderful and a lot of fun. So Dane, this time of year, usually comes up with something crazy. And, you know, sometimes you'll get something you'll be like, you know, I know I need to write about this right now, but I really wish Dane could do it because I don't know where he would go with it because he's insane. And I love that about the guy.
Yeah.
I have listened to his podcasts, and they're all over the place and wonderful at the same time.
Yes.
I guess let's kind of step back. I mean, I'm not like a stalker. This is just back when you were doing the Reds blog back in the Post days, and you on game threads when it was a crappy team, and we'd always get to talk about something else. But you grew up like an army, like not army brat, a military brat, so you were all over. And so how did you arrive with your favorite team, and how did you even get into baseball? I mean, like what has baseball always been your favorite sport, or?
Yeah, it's not even been close. My dad said just when I was a little kid, that's all I was interested in. And it was just all about baseball all the time. And it's kind of been that way as long as I can remember. You know, I worked through other newspaper jobs, and I've done other jobs. I've covered other sports. You name another sport, and I've covered it. But it's always been with the express goal of not having to watch anything but baseball. It's just the sport I love. It's the sport I've always loved, and I'm blessed to be around it as much as I am.
What do you think got you into that? I mean, I think the turning point for me, I mean, we grew up in Cincinnati, so obviously we had the Reds, and in the 80s they were a very good team, never great, but it was always good enough to keep us interested and into the pennant race, and that kind of stuck with us. And then like baseball cards I discovered in like 86, and that's kind of what got me to the next level.
I still have the stacks of 87 and 91 cards, and don't even care that like the whole box is worth about 50 cents now.
That lovely wood grain Topps card from
87 Topps.
That's
Although
right.
I always liked the 87 Fleer set. I always thought that the blue one. I always liked that one. Although I do love the wood grain 87 Topps. Yeah, 87 was a big card collecting year for me. I was a card collector. I remember some of my earliest memories are the year before we moved to Cuba. We were at my grandmother's for like a month, and you could walk from her house to the grocery store. And every time we went to the grocery store, I got a pack of. It was 81 Topps, and so I have tons of 81 Topps.
Wow!
And it was just one of those things that sticks out in my mind. So, and like every time I got a Royal, I was really excited. So I have probably like 15 Pete Lecoqs, and I was excited for every Pete Lecoq.
So, were you always a Royals fan, and how did that come down?
My parents are from Missouri. My dad was a Royals fan, so just always liked the Royals. And, you know, I was born in 1975, so
they were good then. Yeah,
they were, you know, for the first 11, 12 years of my life, they were the model franchise.
Right.
They were the team from as long as I could remember up until, you know, 85 when they finally won it. So it was easy to like them. Although I never lived in Missouri, so I lived all over the place, and it was a different time as being a baseball fan just because you didn't get to see it. You know, that's why I still love every team has to be represented at the All-Star game.
Right.
Because when I was a kid, that was the one time I got to see the Royals. Right. There was always a Royal. And even later when they weren't really good, and, you know, I think 88 was Kevin Seitzer, their only
sounds right.
Wasn't he an all-star rookie on his card? The little
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a great rookie season. I went back and looked at that. And Brett was selected, but he was hurt. So,
when did Bo Jackson play? Wasn't that about the same time?
89 was his first one. That was the one. 89, I believe, was his first. It may have been his only All-Star game, and that was when he led off the game against Rick Russell with that long home run in Anaheim.
See, we got screwed. We got the 88 All-Star game, which has to be like the most boring All-Star game of all time.
It had Kevin Seitzer.
Oh, yeah. Well, Chris Savo stole a base. That was the only highlight of the entire game. And then Whitey Herzog pulled him in the next inning. The crowd booed him for 10 minutes. So that was the highlight.
There are worse highlights.
I'm sure, but for when I was, we get to go to the All-Star game. This is incredible, and that was it. That had to, yeah.
All-Star games are anticlimactic, pretty much anyway. I've been to 4, 5.
But working not as a kid. Well, obviously.
Well, as a kid, yeah. I mean, but even then, they're still boring because it doesn't matter. You know, and so even as a kid, it was like exciting that I got to see Kevin Seitzer. Right. But after, Kevin Seitzer pinch hits and walks or whatever happened, that's it.
So what do you think about, I know you had to cover the Reds for a few years and now you're covering all the teams, but I mean, you obviously like Cincinnati because you stayed there. What do you think about the organization now and like the type of people you work with? And
I mean, the organization's pretty. I think you saw a turn, and I wasn't around quite long enough to get or be as close to have the feeling around the previous ownership group. But I think it's a marked difference between the previous ownership group and their attitude towards owning a baseball team,
right,
and the current one. The day Bob Castellini bought this franchise will go down as one of the great moments in Reds history. I really believe that because you finally had a guy who wants to win, who wanted to own a baseball team.
Right.
And
because I think like with the Cardinals or something. Yeah.
He was in their ownership group, but I mean, he's a Cincinnati guy. And he was in their ownership group because, well, he had a lot of money and he loved baseball and he had some friends who were in that ownership group and they approached him and, that started out. He saw that and he said, you know what, I want to do this and I want to buy the Reds. And Bob Castellini wants to own the Reds and he wants the Reds to win. And, I'm not a fan in the traditional sense anymore.
No.
But as a person who watches the Royals closely, that's something Royals fans would kill for.
I just don't. I mean, I don't want to get into specifics, but you look at people that bitch about dusty moves and people that bitch about whatever else. It's like 3 years ago we were wanting 500, and now people are already thinking that almost thinking like a Yankee fan. I just really don't. Why can't savor?
I think that's fandom.
Yeah.
No, and also it's our society now.
Right.
That everybody thinks, and the word that gets thrown around all the time and that just drives me nuts is deserve. Why, as a fan, do you deserve your team to win? I don't understand that.
No.
And that's just, some people think that, and you know what? You pay to go see a game, and it's great, and whatever happens. At the end of the season, 29 teams aren't going to have won the World Series.
No. I mean, if it's evenly distributed, you win it once every 30 years, and it's not. So savor what you can. I mean, I'll always have 1990. I mean, that was incredible, and I wish Major League Baseball would put official DVDs out of that stuff. There are actually some people that would want that to watch that again, but
yeah, I would love the 85. Well, there is the 85 one out, and I just haven't bought it.
Right. I mean, they
have the 75 one, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I love those things, and I wish there was one of each game for every year. course, I guess now you could probably get them digitally, but all that I think that would be great to make available. But because there are people like, for you, that series is just
that's my childhood. That's the thing of all that growing up, and I kind of stopped watching them after the '95 debacle for a good 10 years, and I found your column looking for Bengals stuff actually because they were finally getting back to the playoffs, and then is after. Screw the Bengals. I don't even want to talk. Well, I kind of want to make fun of football. I'm sure you kind of do too. Where was I going with this? Yeah.
The wonders of being a Reds fan, I think.
Yeah, but I think, you look at it, and I always say I was a Royals fan, and they won when I was 10 years old. That's perfect for me, that's be old enough to appreciate it and still think it's going to happen every year, but to know it happens and to see it, I would much rather 10-year-old me get to experience my team winning a World Series rather than 30-year-old me.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, now I go to games with my daughter. She's 3, but she barely gets what's going on. But I mean, I'm watching things through her eyes as much as I'm watching through my own these days. So it's. And then you see, you like a Brandon Phillips. If I were 10, he would be the coolest MFer of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care for him. I like Brandon, I like his play, but I don't care about the where am I going with this? I love
the extracurriculars, Twitters.
Yeah, I don't care about his Twitter feed, right? Stuff like that. But he goes to a Little League game. He plays Halo or whatever online with kids and stuff, and how
that's
cool.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for those kids, and hopefully it makes a baseball fan for life. And you gotta respect what Brandon does.
Johnny Bench never played in television with me when I was that age, and
you didn't get on the baseball bunch.
And my television didn't have a modem, so what could I have done?
Yeah, that in television baseball. That was, I remember that because my friend Jimmy had in television. And the baseball game was lacking.
Yeah.
That would be actually former Reds pitcher Jimmy Anderson, who had the television.
Gotcha.
So we were always on the same Little League team. He was one of my good friends when I was younger, and his dad was always my coach. So, that was the other part. Was, when I was 10, I saw a guy who had the talent. And, that's one thing I think a lot of people forget. You'll be like, oh, that guy, oh, he was terrible. It's like, yeah, but you know what?
Yeah.
He made it to the major leagues. Yeah, so, he was there for 5 years. So, I mean, to the people that make the major leagues, the difference in skill is so vast. The worst player in the major leagues is better at baseball than I will ever be at anything in my life.
It's kind of the same for me. I went to high school with Mark Edwards, and he made it to the NFL, and he was just a journeyman fullback. But in high school, holy crap. I mean, he played offense, defense, and he was the kicker.
Right.
Yeah. I had the high school memory of realizing that 8 or 9 years before I went to high school, Dave Justice was walking the same halls that I walked when I was in high school in Covington.
Yeah.
At about the least likely school in the world that you would ever think someone like that would go to.
Yeah, I mean, and so I just think a lot of times people forget. I think there's, because of salaries and other things, people view these players almost like they view somebody on a video game, and you can yell at some guy on the video game because, oh, you suck and all this, where you forget that these are human beings who are doing something really remarkable. Baseball's really, really hard. And that's something I think a lot of fans tend to forget, is just how difficult it is. It's a joke I've had with a couple of guys, and I'll be like, yeah, I know why you struck out there, because baseball's really fucking hard. I mean, to hit something coming at you 100 miles an hour with a stick, much less put it somewhere where there aren't guys. I mean, to hit it really far. I mean, it's all just amazingly difficult, and it's a difficult
by the way,
game.
It's not coming in a straight line either.
No, No, and the further you get away, and especially if you're watching on TV, it looks so easy. And it looks like the game you and I played growing up. You know, it looks like the game I played in high school. It's nothing like the game I played in high school. And I think we forget about that sometimes in all sports. And I think it's one of these times where you just kind of sit back, and that's one of the things I guess not being a fan has allowed me to do, is to sit back and watch and just kind of wonder. You know, I don't. I'll go with my wife or friends to a game when I go to a game in the stands, and they just always kind of laugh at me because I just sit there and I watch. Mm-hmm. They're like, "Oh, you're just watching like a show." Like, yeah, I am, but I'm also just watching because this whole thing, what happens in front of us, is just fascinating and beautiful.
I mean, there is different levels of doing anything. I mean, this being a video game podcast, I really don't play video games anymore. I don't have the time to, but the history and what goes into something and the story of how it was made and that sort of thing, that fascinates me more than the game itself anymore. And it's the same with baseball. It's the same with any subject really. There's
sure.
Or music appreciation is another one of your fortes. I mean, do you get to be one of those guys that listens to every note that a guy plays instead of just jumping up and down to a cool beat? I mean, there's different levels of appreciation. And where am I going?
Yeah, and sometimes you just want to jump up and down.
Yeah, there's both. Yeah, I'm more of that guy too. But I mean, there is that kind of gets me into like. In terms of covering sports, what do you think about I mean, you have the traditional newspapers are dying out, but then you've got the other side of the coin, the super snarky type bloggers, like Deadspin and whatnot. Is that, I mean, what do you kind of feel about that style of journalism in sports?
I guess it has its place. It's not my style, and so I just, I think there's at one point where I was probably more snarky than I am today, and I'm kind of over snark.
I mean, too.
Sure, I was there when I was 27. We were all 27 once, and we were a lot smarter back then. And we, I think there's a thing on the internet where everybody is smarter than anybody else, and anything anybody else does is stupid automatically, and it gets old.
Yeah.
And the more you be around it, and sometimes when you're asked to try to emulate that at times, and not that I am, but I have been in the past, and it's just like, that's not me, and I'm kind of over that, and there's a mean-spiritedness, and as I've gotten older, I guess I'm more boring, but I've gotten over mean-spiritedness. It doesn't do anything good or positive, so I don't know. I think it's age. I don't know.
Do you think it's like just people just trying to crawl in, and that's the way they get in? Is just that? I mean, I guess
some people do, And hey, yeah. I guess good for them. I'm not going to begrudge anybody for what they do. I just, sometimes it's not stuff I like to read a lot, and it's not stuff I want to participate in. So, there's enough out there that you can find the tone and of writing or of what you enjoy. And if you enjoy snark or mean-spiritedness, there's plenty of places to find that. If you enjoy numbers, there's a lot of places to do that. If you just want to read good stories, there's plenty of places to do that. There's more out there now than there's ever been. And there's more quality stuff out there than there's ever been, and there's more crap out there than there's ever been. Right. It's up to you as a consumer to figure out what you want and where to find it. And that can be hard. And it's sometimes you find something and you're like, how did I miss this? And then, there's some stuff you just take for granted because you've always had it around and you've always enjoyed it. And so I think there's more out there, good and bad, than there's ever been. And, as a consumer, as a fan, as a whatever, that's got to be a good thing, I guess.
It seems like there's this push for instant gratification too on.
Oh yeah.
On something that's, especially a sport like baseball, that's very non-instant gratification based. You lose one game out of a 162 game season. and the sky's going to fall. Well, really, it's not going to fall.
Wasn't
You're
George
disappointed, but you can wake up the next morning and say, it's another day. We're not that far out.
Wasn't George Steinbrenner a big failure in that strategy? I mean, wasn't that completely evident during the 80s?
Yeah.
When he laid off, they won.
Right. And I say that all the time. We live in a Twitter world where everything is analyzed so quickly. And sometimes it just, for baseball, that is the absolute worst way to look at anything. I see things all the time. It's like, oh, that guy's terrible. How could he let that pitch go? And on Twitter, it's a pitch by pitch moment thing.
Ugh.
Mm-hmm. And then, the next one's a home run. It's like, oh, yeah, they shouldn't have pinch hit for him. He's not or nobody ever says that. It's like, oh, I knew he was going to come through. And it's like, no, you were just complaining. He shouldn't be up there or whatever.
Yeah. And
it's,
even though I'm a stat
crazy.
dork, it's nice to, look at all those stats, all those things you can see instantaneously. There's nothing wrong at the end of it. We're saying, hey, it just wasn't our day.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I love the statistics. I love the statistical analysis. And I think the best of it, the very best of it is it's a search for knowledge and understanding, but with the understanding that you'll never understand it all and that you can never predict what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of it. And I think all the best work is done with that in mind. And that's where a lot of the mainstream, pardon the phrase, the mainstream media, when you read the people who go, oh, it's people in their mother's basement, or, the Mitch Albom bullshit about, who people watch the game. No. These people watch the game. They enjoy it. They just want to understand it more and aren't just, it has nothing to do with not enjoying the game. It's enjoying it differently and finding a truth. And the reason you keep coming back and you search for truth is because you're never going to know it all. And that's the beauty of it. And to try to find a pattern or something, and maybe it's a better way to measure something, it can be in there. And that's a lot of fun too. Yeah. I never understand, judging somebody on what they find fun. I mean, unless it crosses, a legal line. But yeah, the whole Mike Trout thing.
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah.
It just brought up ugliness on both sides.
Yeah.
And as somebody who just sat there and I was like, I actually voted for the National League MVP. I did not vote for the American League MVP. I didn't vote for the National League MVP. But if I had to vote for the AL MVP, I probably, and I say probably because I know how much work I go into doing my own vote for whatever I'm voting for. And I have not done that work on the AL MVP. But I'm pretty sure I would have voted for Mike Trout. But the other thing I say is Miguel Cabrera had an amazing fucking year.
Yeah.
Both these guys were fucking great. What's worth getting worked up about either one getting a trophy when you sit back and realize both these guys had amazing seasons? And I wouldn't have voted for Miguel Cabrera, but I can see the argument.
It wasn't a robbery.
Yeah. No,
not at all. No.
And and I had this conversation with my friend that I work with at CBS, Scott Miller, and Scott was on the Cabrera side, but we were both like, with him, he's like, well, I can see why you'd say Trout. I mean, he's amazing and he did all this great stuff. I understand that. I just like what Cabrera did, and I go, okay, yeah, Why does it have to be that Scott's stupid and I'm smarter than him? You'll see that, and there's this high-mindedness on there's always like, oh, they're stupid, they don't understand, right. And it comes from both sides. You can, for every Mitch Albom stupid column, you have Keith Law on Twitter bitching, telling everybody how stupid they are for thinking anything different than he does.
Mm. I mean, weren't sabermetrics an attempt to find? I mean, this is my version. I'm not the expert, but it was an attempt to find value where that was overlooked, right? It wasn't.
Well, I think it wasn't meant to replace. The money ball. I think that's more what has been termed Moneyball is finding what is. I think sabermetrics is more search, answering questions about the game, whereas Moneyball was the applied philosophy of that, and it was what they call Moneyball, and that was finding what is undervalued in the market to your advantage. And at one time, that was on base percentage. That's not undervalued anymore.
No,
not at all.
So I think that's. Now there's a slight difference, and I mean, I guess it's all semantics, but
now it's got to be age, right? I mean, that's signing people that while you still have them under control and arbitration free.
Right. I mean, I think that's a big thing. We saw that with Joey Votto. You see that with Economics of the Game, and Evan Longoria twice. Mm-hmm. With his first contract was huge, and that was the Rays. The Rays have been very smart about how they hold on to people and what they do and how they use them. They see bullpen high-priced relievers as overvalued, so they stay away from them. And look at the success they've had. Kyle Farnsworth, Fernando Rodney. I mean, they've been unbelievable with that. And I kind of fall on that side as well, where it's like, I'm not going to give a 3-year deal to Jonathan Broxton, but that's not to say that Walt Jocketty doesn't know anything about baseball.
Right.
Walt Jocketty knows a lot more than I do, and a lot more than I'll ever know. And there's always an inside game. It's funny. I can only speak to this very vaguely, but I remember when I was on the beat, there was a questionable. There was a pinch hitting decision or something, and. I wrote, how could you do this, blah, blah, blah. And I asked a question in the press conference afterwards in the media session afterwards. And I got kind of a runaround answer and whatever. And so I just kind of, whatever, I'm smart. I read all this. Well, you go back and the next day the manager comes and pulls me aside. There's always a different real story than what they can tell you, what they can say. Sometimes it's a guy who's sick or a guy who is just confidence is shot. A guy who's just like, I can't hit a right-hander right now, or I can't hit this guy. If you put me up there, I'm just going to fail, and that's going to be terrible. A manager's thinking he's thinking whole season. That's the other thing of the Twitter world is I think on managers, what we see, I'm a big believer is what we can see and judge a manager on, I really believe is anywhere from, at the most, 25% of that manager's job. Mm-hmm. It's stuff that nobody can see but the player in the clubhouse and the managers and the coaches can really see that as most of that guy's job. And I wrote, I sort of wrote. I interviewed people and wrote what they said, but it did a piece for Baseball Prospectus this year on manager, and just got kind of different ideas from different people. I think
I read that. Did you talk to like a player and another manager and an up and comer?
Kinds of players, and all that, and just seeing what a manager's real job is, and how important it is, and what they do, and it was kind of interesting. I mean, there was a lot of nuance and maybe some stuff not said, but I just think managers and their job, I don't know that is fully understood even by some managers.
Yeah.
If you think about it, Sparky Anderson in the Twitter world wouldn't have made it to the 75. He would have been.
Oh, no.
No, he would have been gone. And I don't know if it's a Cincinnati thing, but
no, it's not.
We look nostalgic at Sparky Anderson. Oh, he was the best. And we're looking at Eric Davis, who everybody couldn't stand when he was playing here. He always got hurt and blah, 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 blah. But the dude tore up his kidney helping us win a World Series. So, now he's seen as a hero, but even when he played and even after that season, they still wanted to get rid of him, and there was a lot of fan sentiment against him. So it's one of the. So you say it's everywhere?
Yeah, I don't think, and that's the other thing is we see it. I think there's less and less individual identities of towns and sports towns and all that now than there's ever been. You have the same McDonald's and Taco Bell and complaining about the manager everywhere.
I'll have a Mick, you suck. Yeah. another thing kind of related to that is growing up, we had Pete Rose, and then that transferred over to Barry Larkin, and that translated over to Ken Griffey Jr., and then there was other players that were from Cincinnati. I think that's something that they're missing now. Just maybe that one little piece, maybe if it's just like a 25th guy. I don't know. Am I talking my butt?
I don't know. I think that's interesting. I think that's something that's kind of, maybe been even unique for Cincinnati, because to think that you have 2, 3.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame, no doubt Hall of Famers. Well, 2 one that's in, one that will be in, and one that should be in.
Right.
That played for their hometown team. One of those is different. Ken's different because will always be a Seattle Mariner. Mm-hmm. That's where he was at his best. That's where, 99, everybody outside of the city thinks of him as a Seattle Mariner.
Yeah.
And most of I don't know what kind of percentage you would put on it, but a lot of people in this town see him as a Seattle Mariner. But I think that's pretty unique, especially for a city this size, and all that. There's a lot of history in this town, and it's really different. When you look at some of the names that have played, just thinking that, Ken Griffey Jr. and Barry Larkin went to the same high school. Yeah. It's unbelievable to me, and I think it's just it's pretty fascinating, and I think it might be.
You go all back to Joe Nuxhall, even.
Yeah, you've had these guys, and I'm a Royals fan. George Brett is a Kansas Cityan now, but he grew up in California, and he is still the face of the franchise. It is so rare. Even think about the Chicago guys. It's not like Ernie Banks is from the South Side.
No.
It's pretty rare for you to have that hometown guy, and to have 3 of them. And 2 that are real legitimate franchise icons, and Barry Larkin and Pete Rose.
Yeah.
That is something that is I kind of think it's uniquely Cincinnati. I would have to look up when you look at things, but if you said who is the Kansas City Royals, it's George Brett. If you said who is the St. Louis Cardinals, it's Stan Musial.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and if you said who is the Cincinnati Reds, you say Pete Rose. Mm-hmm. And what's funny about that is Pete Rose is not only from Cincinnati, but he is very Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's something that people don't understand. It's kind of a joke when you don't live here that you just kind of, oh man,
there
Pete
goes
can do
again.
no wrong. There's Cincinnatians sticking up for Pete Rose. They love him in that town, and he can do no wrong in that town. I think it's a more complex relationship, but it's tough to understand, and I didn't understand it when I moved here, and I still don't fully understand it, but I have a better understanding now because I've lived here for so long.
Right.
And, that guy is Cincinnati, and for better or for worse. And he's also one of the greatest baseball players who ever lived, and that he did it in this town, I think is just so special.
Very. So I guess the obvious question is, do you think they'll ever get him in the Hall like posthumously or something?
I don't know. That I have absolutely zero idea. He won't go in as long as Bud Selig's in charge of baseball.
Right.
Whoever takes over after that, it's possible. It just depends on who that person is. I think it's possible. I wouldn't bet on it either way. Pardon
pun.
the pun.
Right.
But it is so different, and that is such a. It's funny. I tell this all the time. Is when I interviewed at the Cincinnati Post, first question the executive editor asked me in my interview was, "Do you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame?" And I was like, "Wow, that's." I answered correctly, which is anybody with 4,256 hits deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So, but yeah, I think that's kind of crazy, and it's of this town, and I think, you know what? I think it's special, and I think it's a very cool thing, and I like it a lot. That it's a neat thing about this city, that relationship. And Pete, I know, is a very complex individual. I've talked to him on a couple occasions, and my relationship with him doesn't matter, or what those personal things is. He's still Pete Rose, and in this town, I think it's a powerful thing, and it's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're just up in Columbus, not 2 hours away, and whenever the local radio talks about him, they always start poking fun at him instantly because, I mean, since the Cincinnati influence is a lot smaller than it used to be. I mean, I guess back in the 70s, the whole state was pretty much Reds country, and now you can barely get out of the city limits anymore. I guess you can go south, but it kind of pisses me off. There's so many goddamn Indians fans up here. But
yeah, it does. Now, and with the farm team now being a Indians farm team, that does not help.
Yeah, it's interesting. This state, I'm not from here, and I don't understand. I was just talking to somebody about how I live in the one corner of this state that, you know what, I had to be reminded it was Ohio State Michigan week.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right about that.
And
Here,
it's
the
so
entire
weird
city
to me.
shuts down for it. Cincinnati, it's like, oh yeah, they play a game up there.
But everywhere else in this state is, it's this week. But in this, one of the largest cities in the state, I don't know the specific number, but it's at least the third largest. It's in the top 3 of a very big state. And it's just, it's nothing. And, I lived in Alabama, and you can't go to a street on Alabama where
they poison trees down there.
Right.
Yeah. It's a little different. I lived in Alabama. I covered Alabama for a year. That's where I was before I came up here. And yeah, it's different. That is really different.
Notre Dame was big when I was growing up too, but I don't know what, maybe because they sucked for so long and maybe because they stole Brian Kelly, but I guess it's not even.
Yeah, I don't think it was big even before Kelly. It's that Catholic thing, and I'm not Catholic, and I'm not around the Catholics, so I don't know if it's still big in the Catholic circles.
It definitely is.
Is that still going away? Is that going away too? I mean, I kind of read about the southernization of Cincinnati sometimes.
Well, it's northern Kentucky.
Right.
Cincinnati is definitely has Kentucky influence. So it is interesting. It's not, as someone who's spent most of their life in the South, this is not, despite the fact that you can't get decent barbecue, and some people ask you what the hell you're asking for when you ask for sweet tea, or they point to sugar. Those two things aside, it is pretty southern.
All right.
Although I know people, and I would probably be one of them, that said if you can't have barbecue and sweet tea, then you aren't even close to southern.
So what? All right. So dumb hack question: what do you think of the chili?
I like it. My wife does not. What I always tell people when introducing it is that forget the name for a second,
right?
Because I think that's what gets in the way of people as they think of a bowl of Texas chili. Although that's also misunderstood because Texas chili doesn't have beans in it. But people think of chili differently, and that's stuck in their head, and they're like, this is different, I'm not going to like it. And so out of its own merits and what it is, I crave it, and I have it every, at least once a month.
Yeah. What's your preferred? Camp Washington.
I love Camp Washington. But I usually go to Skyline.
Oh, nothing wrong with that.
I used to live in Camp Washington, so Camp Washington and being 24 hours and the hours I kept, it was very handy that I lived down the street.
Pleasant Ridge when I was growing up, but they were open to like 4 a.m. So that was close to where we were, just down the street from everybody's record. So that's the track.
I've sobered up there.
Well, I guess let's turn to football, because I know when you lost your job at the Post, I sent you a brief email hoping that you didn't get stuck on some crappy football beat, because I really cannot stand the NFL anymore. And after all the bullshit with Penn State and Ohio State and D. Bagmeyer being the coach up here now, I'm pretty much done with college football for a while too. And then all the concussions on top of that. I mean, do you understand why why it's so big? I just don't get it.
It's easy to gamble on, and fantasy football, and short attention span. It's only once a week. It's hyped. It's just what it is. I mean, I think gambling is the number one thing. I think it is the biggest reason for the popularity of the sport. And you can be a casual fan. It's all the things we value in American society: second guessing, watching other people get hurt. It's a violent land acquisition game. I mean, it's as American as it gets. I'm a baseball guy, so I believe in the purity and the beauty of baseball and the brutality of football. It is segregated classes. You have the people who do the real work. People don't know that's the offensive and defensive lines,
right.
And the people who, you have the quarterbacks and the running backs and the receivers who get the glory.
Running backs get glory? Really?
Well, they used to, yeah.
They don't anymore.
I mean, they've been turned into, they're just chum. I mean, and that's really what it is. And it's the more you're around, if you're around somebody who played a long time ago at any level, it is really kind of sad. Like I've interviewed and talked to and seen Bill Stanfill, who's on the Dolphins, Georgia player, All-American, one of the greats, and his body. And luckily, it's just his body that's gone.
And this was when? When did he play?
He played. He was a contemporary of Spurrier, so 60s. Yeah, and his body is just. It's just sad, and and it sounds sad to say, but luckily it's just his body is. And when you talk about the mind, when Dave Durrison shoots himself in the chest so that his brain can be preserved to be studied, that is frightening and sad. And Junior Seau, what happened there? It's just, I have a daughter, so I doubt that she's going to play football or would want to play football. But if I had a son, there is zero chance I would let my son play football. And I've struggled with that. And I say, well, how do I care less about football than I ever have? Because I say, how can I, in any honesty, say I wouldn't allow my child to participate in this, but yet I will support it?
I see that with my 3-year-old son. I enjoy football. I enjoy watching football. But, every time my dad comes to visit from Northern Kentucky, he looks at my 3-year-old who's tall for his age and strong, and he looks like he could be a great linebacker. And I'm just thinking, I don't know if I really want him to do that. I'd much rather he be a left-handed pitcher and pitch for 20 years.
Exactly.
They make more money.
Well, you have guaranteed contracts.
Yeah,
that's right.
The Dodgers got $6 billion from Fox. I mean,
yeah.
Just be a left-handed pitcher, go pitch a third of an inning every second day, make millions.
Yep. That's if I told my wife that if we had a boy, that boy's right arm was going to be tied behind his back. Of course, I'm left-handed, and what good did it do me?
Amen.
So it actually is funny. We had at one time on the Reds beat, it was me, I think Mark Sheldon, John Fay, and Hal McCoy all left-handed. And I replaced Mark Lancaster, who's also left-handed. And it was funny. We were at the winter meetings once, we were at in Oakland, I think it was, and we were just sitting there before the game, and Pete McCannon goes, "You guys are all left-handed." Like, yep. Like, wow. I was like, not one of us could pitch either. And we were then at winter meetings once, and it was us and the Padres writer, and Bud Black and Dusty and the writers, and Bud Black looks at me like, "You're all left-handed." And him being a fellow lefty, he caught up on that because you always look out for lefties. And not one of us could pitch. It's amazing.
Amazing or sad?
Sad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Get a bank
account. Sad.
Yeah. I never got to play sports growing up, so it's always been vicarious. But
yeah,
I've tried to pitch at those speed machines. It's one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen.
Well, I remember when I was in high school, one of the few times I got on the mound, I was pissed off at the other team, so I was going to hit the first guy, and I couldn't hit him.
Oh, no.
But I actually threw and made from center field. I could, but from the mound I couldn't.
Weird.
You've got the Ricky and Keel thing going on.
Yeah, exactly. With a lot less talent, a lot less on it.
Or a career in politics.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and tie this up and talk video games for a minute.
Sure.
Because I kind of think that sports are getting more video game like with stupid replays and everything, that statistics all over the screen and displays and graphics added on, and then the video games are getting more realistic.
Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like but to the detriment of both, honestly, because frankly, I had more fun playing RBI baseball and Tecmo Bowl than I ever had playing the show or Madden.
Yeah,
and the stuff on TV, I hate replay. It just totally. It's almost of no benefit unless you're a fan of a certain team, and it's like just play it, and if it affects you negatively, get over it. You should be ahead by 2 scores anyway.
I can understand that totally. It is so different. The games today are so hard. You can't be a casual gamer anymore.
And they wonder why they don't make money anymore. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they make money or not, but you just don't. I see it hard to be a casual gamer, and I think that's one of the funny things is you'll see the less of the consoles games and more of the iPad games and iPhone games, because those you can pick up and play.
Yeah.
Sure, there's going to be people who play Halo or whatever, but I've tried to do those and I just don't. I'm not good. I'm not going to put in the time to be good. I've got other things going on. I want to pick up and play an Angry Birds for 2 seconds just to kind of, just for some fun and not have to feel like I have to immerse myself in a world for 3 hours.
Yeah.
The best, I've been playing MLB 09 the show for the past 4 years. And in 4 years of real time, I've made it through as a pitcher. So I'm only pitching every 5th virtual day. I've still only made it through 6 seasons.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot.
Well, when I imagine people who are playing 20 seasons of Madden or look on YouTube and they just broke the strikeouts record with their creative player, I just think about how much time it takes to play that. Yeah, I wish I had that time, but I'm a 30-year-old guy working a regular job. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, and if you have a kid, geez, I mean,
he just came into the room to say hi to me.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think I had free time before.
No,
but I really did, and now it's just different, and it's great.
Yeah,
yeah, it is.
How old is she now?
She'll be a year in 2 weeks.
So she's
Congratulations.
She's saying some stuff, and it seems to be on purpose. She's walking around. Thank you. Yeah, she's crazy.
It goes by quick. Really does.
That's what they say, and it's funny because there are all these all these like cliches that you hear, and you're just like, yeah, and they turned out to be all true, and it's
every
fantastic.
single one of them. Yeah,
thank God.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the it's. There's a lot of people our age that just don't have kids, and of course, I work at a job where I sit at a computer all day, so I listen to podcasts, and it's your Mark Marons and your
Yes,
and Nerdists and other things like that. None of these people have kids, and they all talk about reading scripts and going to whatever's in Hollywood, and it's like, Jesus Christ, what do you and watching TV shows and seasons and stuff? It's like, where do you people live?
yeah,
where can I have these 35-hour days?
No kidding.
right. It's funny because I listened to both of those today. Those are two of my favorites. But yeah, and I actually kind of had that same thought when they were talking about something. It was just like, yeah, you don't have kids.
No, Mark Maron does not need to have a child, though.
No, it's
I'm sure he's listening, but please don't, Mark.
yes. That's probably very, very true. But yeah, that is great stuff. I love the podcast. Since I don't drive to work anymore, I hear a lot fewer than I used to.
Right.
Because I can't write and read and listen to a podcast.
Yeah, you kind of have to do one or the other. But when you're doing mindless stuff, it's with us with regular jobs, they don't get to live the dream of covering baseball for a living.
Right. Sitting in my office for most of the time because it's so much. And unfortunately, I do this. I'm not at the park as much as I'd like because it is so much easier to sit at my desk. I have in my office, I have 2 TVs, an iPad, and 2 computers. And it's a lot easier to keep track of, the 15 games going on.
Right.
In that situation than it is at the ballpark.
Yeah, what did we? I mean, even with the real-time scoring that they have at those stadiums now, with I never look at that. I'm just paying attention to the game and trying to get a hot dog.
Yeah, and that's a fun way to do it. And although I'm sitting there and it's just like, what did I ever do before BaseballReference.com?
Oh man!
Oh my goodness, yes.
What a time sink. My latest obsession a couple months ago was there's an RBI baseball editor for NES, so you can make your own team. So
I'm so glad I haven't seen that.
Chris, did you make the teams for this year? Because I totally want that.
I made a futility edition, so it had the 63 Mets and the 69 Expos and all the worst teams of the past 40 years or so. And then I made a 10 greatest Reds teams, and I mean, and the formulas are really basic, so you can kind of get creative, how you decide to apply power and contact, because that's the only 2 batting statistics.
Right.
And then the pitching statistics are how much your ball curves, but you can't look at Baseball Reference to determine if a pitcher's a curveball pitcher, so you just kind of go with strikeouts and walks and control and stuff. But it was still pretty, and condensing everybody's name down to 8 characters, that's a fun choice.
Yeah, Fangraphs, I guess, would be more helpful there.
Yeah, that and I actually spent the $100 to get a flashcard NES card so I could play on a real Nintendo instead of 3.
Oh man!
Wow.
Yeah. So
although I will say, I didn't like RBI as much as I liked Bases Loaded.
Me too. I was
Bases Loaded was good.
And again, being a Cincinnati guy, the only 2 Reds on RBI baseball are John Franco and Eric Davis, and Eric Davis was a chubby white guy. So they all were.
Oh my God!
I will admit to being an RBI guy though, but Bases Loaded was a very, very good game.
Yeah, and I mean, still, I don't remember. I remember the first time I played baseball. The NES baseball.
Oh, that game sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that game so much. I mean, just because, I always played as R. Right. And their third batter was left-handed, and he was great. So that game was awesome.
Nice.
I have it on my Wii. I still play it.
Any Atari 2600 baseball games?
No, I remember them, though. That was pretty awful.
I played Home Run, and for some reason I loved it, even though it was a 1 or 3 fielder game.
Right.
Yes.
But Pete Rose endorsed it, so it must have been good, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
I knew there was a reason. Subconsciously living in Louisville at the time, Pete Rose endorsed it. This I must say.
Really, I thought baseball was like the first huge step.
Yeah, that's fun. I mean,
because you had 9 guys on the field. It was an easier gameplay than the ColecoVision or whatever. Yeah, it was.
That's kind of why the first console war happened, because of in television baseball, you had 9 fielders and George Plimpton.
Right. I remember that now.
Mr. Mann. Did he write a baseball book? I knew he did a football book.
He wrote something baseball. I mean, I don't know that he did Paper Lion-ish, but he may have. I don't know.
Right. But that was his whole credibility, because he knew and that. But I had it in television, and you could play as the Red Visitors or the Blue Home. So it had to be the Red Visitors, of course.
Do either of you guys remember, I think it was called Baseball of the Season. It was an arcade game, and I had a chance to buy it once and have it in my house, and I regret it to this day. It was the one where you actually had the little joystick that you've held back and let go. Loved it. Still play it on the emulator to this day.
Was it? And it was like it was like a stick on its side, right?
Yeah, stick on the side for batting, and then a stick just level for pitching that you flicked back with how hard you wanted to throw the pitch, or if it curved. And
yeah, I do remember that.
Of course, they had the realistic voices. The computerized ball, or that was the highlight. Of course, the
strike.
Yes, but the bases loaded talked. That was what was badass about it, and the home run theme when you hit the home run.
Yes.
I could do that over and over and over again.
And the bullpen cart.
Yes. And the fact you could instigate fights.
Yes.
Them after the home run.
Yes, and you always did that.
Yeah.
When they do it at Reds or whoever else, somebody needs to bring back the bullpen cart just for one game.
I honestly, I've seen they have one.
They do.
At least they did.
Well, I guess they have the one they have the ATV that Mr. Redlegs lost his head on one time.
No. They have a real full-on bullpen cart. I swear I saw it once in the back somewhere.
So they take it from Riverfront? Do they have one at Riverfront?
I don't know. I don't know what the story is on it. I really need to investigate that again, because I swear I saw it once.
Dude, bullpen carts, nice.
Yes.
Trent, we're going to look out for the story. Demanding the return of the bullpen cart.
It will be huge when it happens.
all 15 of us that like 70s and 80s baseball and crappy concrete dome stadium or concrete donut stadiums.
I don't like those stadiums. I mean, I know you grew up going to one.
That's all nostalgia. I completely admit that, but I loved it just because of that. But they're dark and crappy and
yeah.
This is real.
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about having grown up a Royals fan is you always had a great stadium, and you still have the best stadium in that state. It's not even close.
Amen.
Kauffman Stadium is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite places in the world, and I don't think it's just my growing up a Royals fan. I mean, it's a great stadium. It's similar to Dodger Stadium for me. I love Dodger Stadium. That was actually the coolest part about being on a traveling beat is to go into all the stadiums.
Yeah, what are your other favorites?
I separate. Fenway and Wrigley are what they are. You just don't. They're in a class by themselves. They're better as a fan. They're a pain in the ass to work in. Wrigley's the worst to work in, but it's so much fun to go as a fan. But I kind of break it up to new and old. And of the new ones, Pittsburgh, San Francisco, and Seattle are all just fantastic.
Are there any middle-aged parks left? I think it's all like...
I think when you talk about middle age-ish, it's Kansas City and Dodger Stadium. I remember looking this up. I think Kansas City's like the 5th or 6th oldest.
Does like Skydome now qualify as a
like
midlife park? 88
or 89, around there, and it is a midlife park. I
heard the hotel's like really skeezy now, and
I stayed in it. I stayed in it when UC played in the International Bowl, the first ever International Bowl. UC versus Western Michigan. I stayed in that hotel, and it was fine. It was a Marriott then, so I got Marriott points. If you get Marriott points, it's fine. I mean, it's actually great. That's all you need.
Right. I just remember when that first opened, and everybody's like, well, somebody's going to have sex in that room, and the binocular sales are going to go through the roof first. I don't remember it was years ago.
And it did happen.
Yeah, it has to, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah.
But they haven't tried the hotel in a ballpark since then, so I guess that wasn't the success they thought it would be.
Yeah, it's I've never seen a baseball game there. Only a football game. How weird is that?
Well, I guess you didn't cover the AL, so you didn't.
Yeah.
Or if you didn't have the trip to Toronto during your time on the beat.
Right. They did not. I got Oakland. That's a beautiful stadium. I've covered both football and baseball there, but I did get to go to Seattle. That was the Oakland, Seattle, Philadelphia trip.
What the?
Ooh.
Yes.
Yikes.
That was a long trip. And my
why do I remember that one for some reason? Because didn't Cliff Lee throw a shutout against us on that trip? Was that
no? Because Cliff Lee was with the Indians then.
He was with the Indians at that point, so I'm thinking of a future Seattle trip.
Homer got his tits lit up. That was when I got in the second inning when you did the top of the second.
Oh
Actually,
no!
it was the bottom of the second. I remember getting relieved before Homer got relieved, but
wow.
It wasn't very much further until Homer got relieved. So yeah, that was, and my luggage got lost in Philadelphia.
Oh.
Of course.
Philadelphia and Pittsburgh both lost. Whenever I go to Pennsylvania, my luggage gets lost.
How much do you take? Well, I guess when you're gone that long, you got to take a regular bag. But
yeah, you have to. And it's funny. I had a friend of mine is a stewardess, and she always says there's two types of luggage: checked luggage or carry-on luggage and lost luggage.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of a believer in that, except when if you're going on a 3-city trip over 10 days, you got to check a bag. I went to the NLCS. When you don't know exactly where you're going to be, you got to check a bag, or how long you're going to be. You just got to check a bag. And then, I wear a size 13 shoe. And if I'm going to take shoes to wear to work and then shoes to go to the hotel gym or to run or do whatever, I got to take those too. And, you don't throw a pair of 13 and anything else.
Backpack, no. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what's your long-term prognosis? You like CBS? You're going to stick around for a while? Or you?
I like anybody that gives me money.
Oh, hey. You're trying to get back.
They've been great. I enjoy my work. I enjoy the people I work with. So, as long as they keep paying me, unless somebody comes and offers me something else I want to do more money.
They seem to be free of the ESPN bullshit too. I mean,
we try. I mean, it's different. I think everybody has what they do, but I like our crew.
Since you don't have to, since CBS doesn't show any baseball games, they don't have the obligatory ass kissing, or you can actually be objective at your job.
Yeah, and I think, the people that we have there, it's just how they are. Scott and Danny, I respect those guys a lot. I mean, they're great guys and great at what they do. And it's just not how we are. And, I think some of the ESPN guys get a bum rap, and just because there are some bad ESPN stuff.
Right.
But, if you want to talk about, there are few people in this world I respect more and like more than Jason Stark. Jerry Krasnick. I mean, they have some fantastic people over there. And
I guess Barry Larkin's over there too. I gotta pay off.
Barry Larkin is over there as well. But when you have some of those people over there, it's they do some really good stuff. So I know it's fun to bag on ESPN, and there's a lot to bag on. but they also do a lot of really good work. So it's one of those things you just kind of watch.
I guess Baseball Tonight's pretty good. I guess I should have watched what I said there. It's not it's not the NFL type hype, and you can't hype baseball anyway,
right.
So
I watch mostly on TV side. I watch pretty much Baseball Network, MLB Network, because it exists now, and I don't have. You know what? I never have to hear about Tim Tebow.
Okay, Tim Tebow opinion. Go.
Ding.
I think that's plenty. You know. I'm sure he's a nice kid.
Hey, what team does he play for again?
You know what? That's the great thing, though, is I have MLB Network. I don't have to watch ESPN. I don't have to hear about the NFL every day of the week. I don't have to have that because there is an actual thing where I can watch baseball, you know, and I'm sure to me, it seems like they're always talking about the NBA, too, because they have that package, and it just doesn't do anything for me, so I can avoid it now, and it's great.
Yeah, living in Cincinnati, nobody ever talks about it.
It's amazing. That's one of the greatest things about this city. There's actually zero interest in the NBA. I just don't like basketball.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's not the NBA or anything. It's just that it's not a sport I enjoy. It doesn't do anything for me. And so, luckily, with my job, I don't have to watch it. I also write for City Beat, the alternative weekly here in town, so I'll occasionally opine or talk to some people about basketball, but I don't have to do it unless I want to.
Right.
So it's, you know, I just don't like the game, so I don't have to.
Just a couple fights at UC Xavier, and
that was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not going to happen this year.
I am psyched about one thing. My alma mater is now a Division I school. I can proudly say that as an NKU grad, I went to a D1 school.
Yes.
And they're coming to Columbus. I can actually watch them play this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're playing against the Buckeyes in a couple weeks.
You might
look at a nice little paycheck for that.
Yeah.
And with a half full arena.
Yes.
All right.
I will gladly accept my $3 tickets from a coworker.
All right. Before we go, what's the top 3 music shows you've ever been to?
Ooh, 1995 was it? I was a sophomore. Was it 95 or 96? The Masquerade in Atlanta, the Afghan Wigs, on the Black Love tour.
Another amazing thing about you wound up in Cincinnati because.
And if you're an Afghan Wigs fan, there's a website called summerskiss.com that is kind of an Afghan Wigs fan site. Anyway, it is run by my college roommate and best friend who now does the websites for Greg Dooley and Rick McCollum and a couple other people. And so I live in Cincinnati, and I've always been a huge Afghan Wigs fan, and now there's a connection. I'll talk to Greg about the Reds, you know, and it's kind of a crazy thing to me. So that's in there. Probably 1990. It was 95. June-ish. It was PJ Harvey, the To Bring You My Love tour. That was at the Variety Playhouse in Atlanta.
Nobody ever came to Athens, huh?
Oh no, but plenty of people came to Athens, and lots of people would come, but a lot of people you had to go to Atlanta.
Oh, wasn't that the spot of the Great Yo La Tengo stage collapse?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good reference. I remember when that article came out. Oh my God, and it was great. They talked about somebody lost their glasses.
It was like a big pile of rubble and
ironic T-shirts or something, and it was and somebody at Big Shot Records, and actually they may have been.
All the record store clerks were now like they were
yes. I knew those people. Those fake people they quoted, I knew them all. There was also one of Dateline Athens about the record store girl. Yeah, so I saw some great shows in Athens. But and then that third one, it's toss up between any of the Hold Steady shows I've seen. Maybe the one I saw up in Cleveland a couple years back. I drove up and got the Rick Vaughn bobblehead.
Nice.
And saw the Hold Steady afterwards at Beachland Ballroom. Either that, maybe the first Wilco show I saw in Athens at the Classic Center on the Yankee Hotel Foxtrot tour, or Guns N' Roses in the Tokyo Dome in '92.
Oh, hi there. Skype messed up during the interview. We lost a few seconds of audio. Trent went to high school in Japan for a couple of years, so I basically asked him what life was like there and his experiences there. So back to the interview.
It was incredibly cool. It was really neat. I had a ton of fun. As a Reds fan, you will appreciate this, especially when you talk about 85 or 90. We had, for my English class my senior year, we had an assignment to do a research paper that had to be researched. We also had to do an on-site study and an interview. And so it was actually a very good little project for us. Mm-hmm. And I did on Japanese baseball, and a buddy of mine did something, and he kind of did a different angle too. Well, we go up to Yokohama Stadium because we had to go to a baseball game for free for school. And we're sitting we get there early enough that we're in the bleachers in right field for batting practice. We get there and we start screaming at Glenn Braggs, who was outfielder, right fielder for the Yokohama Bay Stars. And we're like, Glenn. He's like, hey, guys, how you doing? And we're like, hey, we got this project. Is there any way we could find a way to interview you? He's like, yeah, after the game, we got to take off on a road trip, but we'll have a little bit of time. Come around to the front gate and wait for me there after the game. And I'll give you 10, 15 minutes, whatever we can fit in. We're like, awesome. And sure enough, after the game, he showed up and gave us, our 10 minutes or whatever. And we talked to him. We shook our hands. He was really, really nice. And we're like, he had his World Series ring on. We're like, we touched a World Series ring.
Wow.
It's the coolest thing. And
that catch.
Me and my buddy John, it was the coolest thing. And so we talked to Glenn Braggs. And so it was really neat. And then was it 2 years ago at Reds Fest when they did the 20th anniversary of the 90 team.
Oh, yeah.
Glenn Braggs was there, and I was like, Glenn, I know you won't remember this, but here's the story. He's like, I don't remember that. And I said, thank you. And he's like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, no problem. And so it was just kind of cool to, through the years of experience and different levels and different whatever I did to run back into Glenn Braggs. The other thing on that, we were upstairs in the kind of the player lounge talking, and the players wear their jerseys, and for the Reds, the 90 Reds, they all had the pullovers. And somebody gave him one, and he took off his shirt, and he just had like a tank top on. Dude is still ripped. I mean, like all the current players were like, oh, I wish I could look like that. Because he is ripped. So yeah, it was pretty impressive, even at his age now. Glenn Braggs is still ripped.
Man. You didn't buy a game system when you were over there, did you? Because that's my other wet dream.
What I did have was I had a PC that was, like whatever it was at the time.
Right.
That had a built-in Genesis.
Oh, wow. I remember So you got rid of that? Because those things are uber rare.
Yeah, I don't know where that is anymore. But yeah, I had that.
If you find it, I get dibs on it. I'm just kidding. Yeah,
but it wouldn't play some games.
Oh, of course not.
When I got over here and I'm in college and I'm playing it, I didn't. It was a rare game that it didn't play. It played NHL '94, and really, what else did you need to play?
Right, exactly. So I think you talked to like almost an hour and a half. That's been really cool that you joined us. And
oh yeah, I'm sorry you've got to edit this because nobody wants to listen to it. But it was nice talking to you guys.
No, you've been super cool with this, and
what is this editing thing you speak of?
That's the beauty of podcasting. It's just people talking, and that's what I like. So it'll probably be mostly unmolested. So,
yes, that's the easiest way to do it. I have done podcasts before, and thankful I'm not doing them anymore.
You should. I mean, maybe you don't do the hard stuff. You should just do the easy part of the talking part.
Yeah, but you sometimes plan that shit, and I have enough going on. I don't want to plan that shit.
Fair enough. This is my only This is my only hobby at this point, other than working 20 hours a day. It seems like so.
Yeah, I understand. So no, but it's good. I enjoyed it.
All right. So thanks a lot, and hopefully run into you at some point or whatever, however that works.
Definitely. I appreciate it.
Trent,
thanks,
you
guys. Yeah, no problem.
Take care, man.
Mm-hmm. Right, take it easy.
Bye.
Now you're playing with podcast.
Once again, we'd like to thank Trent for being on the show. One thing I realized when I was listening to this is we told him early on before we interviewed him that he could cuss on the show, and he did a lot, and I don't think I did much, so I don't think that's fair, so I'll shit, piss, fuck, goddamn, fuck, balls. So that's for Trent. Thanks again for talking to us, Trent. You're a cool guy. I hope we can meet up at Thurman's maybe when you come up here, have a Terminator burger or something.